Welcome to Wealth Creator Radio, where we help people overcome the uncertainty of having enough retirement income. I'm your host, Eric Heckman, a certified financial planner with over 30 years of experience. We want you to enjoy life and not have to wonder where your money will come from and how long it'll last. My mission is to show you how to develop a personalized income plan so you can retire more and have worry less wealth. Here at Wealth Creator Radio, we cut through the noise and get straight to what matters. We understand that the world of retirement planning can be filled with confusing products, ever-changing tax laws, and volatile markets. That's why we're here to help successful people like you navigate the uncertainty and create a blueprint for a thriving, work-optional life.
Pillars are a classic feature of architecture. I think we can all think of one or two well-known structures with those solid columns, out in front. And you think about, well, what would happen if one of them toppled down, right? The whole thing might come down. Well, it's the same for retirement. And we're going to get into that here in just a minute. Thank you for joining us today. You are listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Eric is a certified financial planner. He's been helping people like you have remarkable retirements for over 30 years now. And it's Eric's mission and his team's mission to help you plan for lifetime income, to help you weather almost any economic storm that happens throughout your retirement. Call or text the word visit to 800-454-1184. The appointment is complimentary. Remember, you can get that digital toolbox as well. We'll be talking about that. Listen for your chance to text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. It includes the books that Eric has written. And our podcast comes out every Tuesday morning. So wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube, search for Wealth Creator Radio. And Eric, hello to you. So excited to be here with you.
Yeah, Luann, it's always good to kind of get back to the basics and, talk about those main pillars of retirement and what the main things that people need to be thinking about, because sometimes we get distracted with all the shiny objects or whatever you want to call it, right? So sometimes just going back to the fundamentals is good.
Right. So looking at the St. Joseph Basilica, and the pillars there, I mean, such beautiful architecture and old, and it really does matter, I think, if something would happen to one of those structures, it would affect, the entire building, right?
Yeah. So, anytime you're talking about those structural pillars, those things that hold up the whole thing, right? That's kind of can be related to retirement income. And, retirement income, there's a couple different things you want to look for. And, you never get all of these things in one product. So it's more about a combination of all these things, right? So one is protection, right? You don't want to be retired and have another 08, 09 meltdown and boom, half your money goes away, right?
Right.
But you're going to hopefully be retired for 30 plus years. So you also still need that growth. You still need some of that money growing to combat inflation and, have that money getting bigger. Of course, the only thing you have to have in retirement is income, because otherwise you're just unemployed, right? And
yeah.
So you have to have some income. Some of that stuff has to be not just going up in value, but it has to actually be paying dividends, interest, something that you can withdraw, right, on a monthly basis. And then you need some of that money liquid, because the fridge dies, the roof needs to be repaired, fence blows over, whatever junk happens, right? Life happens. You need some money that's going to be something that you can go grab, in those times where you need that money.
Liquid money, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us the kind of risk you're exposed to if you do not have a 4-pillar retirement like you just mentioned.
Well, if you just think about the 401k is pretty much it's all stocks and bonds. So I call that all market money. So that's all growth potential stuff. It has zero protection. There's usually no options in there to protect yourself from, the values dropping. You might have a money market or something like that. That might be a little bit, but, really not anything. When I look at most people's, their portfolios, the average dividend yield, so and how much the interest and dividends pay, is almost always 1.5%. It's super rare if I ever see anybody over 2, and usually most people are at least at 1. So it's really somewhere in the ones.
Okay.
And so if you need 4 or 5% out of your portfolio in retirement, and you're only getting 1, from dividends and interest, that means you're having to sell shares every single month to get by. And so then, if the market drops that month, you've now locked in those losses. If it drops again, you're locking in even more and more, right? So that's kind of the big risk that you run is when's that downturn? when you're selling shares, the market never goes up straight line, right? It's always all over the place. And so, you're potentially losing a lot because of you don't have some of that money protected and you don't have anything set up for income. I mean, you might have liquidity in like a bank account and stuff, but usually for most of the investments, they can be liquid, but liquid if the market goes down is not so good, right? You want some money that's protected where it won't go down. So that's the biggest risk I find most people run into in retirement.
Okay. Eric, let's talk about then that protection part of our retirement plan. What are we protecting our money from?
Good question. Protecting it from loss, right? Protecting it from it going away. So there are some great tools out there. Ones from insurance companies where they'll pay you a rate based on the stock market. I like to use these in place of bonds. So, a lot of these, they can pay, say, 10% if the market goes up 10%. And so what they do is look 1 year later and how much did the S&P 500 change? If it's anywhere from 0 to 10, you get that number. If it's more than 10, well, all you get is 10. But if it's negative anything, you get 0. You don't lose a dime. And you get to start off at a lower, point in the index. So there's, a lot of higher odds that next year of you getting that 10%. So those can be really good because you can take money out of those. Usually most of them let you take out 10% a year. So you could be doing your withdrawals from there, especially when the market's down. That's where you want to take the money from, something that didn't lose money, right?
Right.
And then when the market goes back up, then you can decide which way you want to take the money from. But those over time should average 5 to 9% or so. So a lot better than bonds with zero risk, and so that's a good easy way to to learn more about how to protect your money. And so one of the things that we also have is we're very big about education here. So we've got a digital toolbox that has a couple different things that you read, like will I outlive my money, which you don't want to do. What's the correct timing for Social Security? Are you paying too much money in taxes in retirement? Copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and even a way to set a time to talk with me, Eric Heckman. So if you want to get access to that, super easy. We'll send you the link. All you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or go online and download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. All right, let's talk about growth potential. Obviously, we need our money to grow. That's our income in retirement. I think immediately, though, our minds go to investments when we think about growing our money. Is there a way to grow it without investing in the markets, Eric?
Well, I mean, like the index annuity type stuff that we mentioned, that's one option that can grow pretty good and still earn some good interest. There's some alternative investments that are actually investments, but they're not maybe daily traded in the markets. And, a lot of those things like private equity, real estate, other things, those can give you some good growth and, without as much of the volatility up and down. So, it's always, again, it goes back to that, that 4-letter word plan. If you get a plan, then this can all work out. But if you're just kind of doing it by just whatever you see that day or whatever makes sounds good on the radio or on the TV, that's not really a great way to do it. You want to have a plan.
Another pillar that we were talking about for a sturdy retirement would be income. And that kind of, is a pillar that supports really every other pillar. Where do people get their income in retirement from?
Well, most only have Social Security and rarely have a pension. So really they're just getting their income from whatever dividends. And like I said before, they don't get much. So they're usually having to sell assets all the time. So that's a very overlooked area of designing some money that has some super high income. That's what we always have what I like to call steady income section, where we put 10 or 20% into things that pay a lot of income. So that way you don't have to sell as many shares. You got some cash flow building up.
Love it. And then the fourth pillar, liquidity. Again, talk about why that's so important.
Yeah, well, you always want to have that. My sons were scouts. I was a scout, and my youngest made Eagle. And you want to be prepared, like the scouts say. So you want to have that be prepared fund that allows you to have some money that usually about 6 months of expenses. So that way you can go pay for that new fridge, pay for whatever repair, home repair, whatever comes up. So again, we can get a lot more data and a lot more stuff to read and educate yourself. Some really quick things to read and review, but not stuff that takes a ton of time. So the easiest way to do that is just by texting the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. You can text word toolbox 800-454-1184 or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. So happy to have you with us today. Something I've been thinking about, Eric, and I know this keeps a lot of people up at night, is the fact that we spend 30, 40 years building our nest egg, right? We try to do everything right, but then once you're in retirement, you're facing this impossible choice. You need your money to grow or inflation is going to eat it alive. But then one bad market crash could potentially wipe out years of your hard-earned savings in just months. So it's kind of like you're walking a tightrope, without a safety net. How are retirees supposed to navigate all this, Eric?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a problem. And one big issue is the 401ks only have stocks and bonds in it, right? It's only all stock and risk money. So if things go down, your 401k is going down. And, in retirement, you can roll that 401k out to an IRA. And then, you've got some options. Then you could have some stuff that's guaranteed, stuff that's not going to go away. And then you can have the stuff that's still there for growing, in the market, and then you also, of course, want some stuff that's paying some income because, you need those withdrawals, even in those bad markets, and you have to keep taking that money out. So, that's one of the things that, I think people just don't understand as much as having those three types of money are so critical in retirement.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like, you're damned if you do take money out, you're damned if you don't. What happens to someone who is already retired? The market drops 30% and they're pulling that money out to live on. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, there's a fancy thing called the sequence of returns, and it's just the odds of, what did you get, right? The hard part is we don't know which decade's going to be the bad decade until it's over. And so, you think about the 70s was a bad decade in the market, 80s was good, 90s was really good. And of course, we had the 2001 decade or 2000 decade, which, the S&P was -1 for that 10 years. I mean, people nowadays just say, oh, buy S&P index fund, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. It's like, no, that's not historically always accurate. And,
right.
And so, you don't know which timeline you're going to get. And, when you're taking that money out, when you're working, it's no big deal, right? Because those ups and downs, you didn't cash in anything, so nothing changed. But when you have to take that money out every month to live on and enjoy life, that money's gone. Those shares don't come back when the market comes back. And then it's pretty tough because then, a 20% drop can take more than 30% to come back from. So,
yeah, that's very, very tough. And there is a massive difference between building your wealth and then you're in retirement and you're trying to preserve it. Talk about why some professional advisors seem to kind of miss this distinction.
Well, I mean, a lot of them are what I like to call investment managers. And so a lot of people, for most consumers, they just think, okay, I'm going to go talk to somebody who's a financial advisor and they're going to help me, right? And, just like the medical profession and other things, there's specialists, right, that do certain things. And, there's some that their focus is just on having that money grow and having that money keep going up. There's a really big firm. I don't know. They just kind of sound like fishermen. But,
okay.
They're going to have you have 100% of money always in the market, always at risk. And I don't know how people can sleep at night that way because of, you're going to have those downturns. And so, so some advisors just, that's their thing. They just want you to have it all invested always. And, of course, they also get their fee that whole time. But, but you really do need to have some money that's truly guaranteed, but still earns good rates. You still need to have some money that's cash flowing well. And, and so once you have that diversity, then it's really key. But, again, you have to be working with somebody who's really focused on retirement, because the numbers are all different. When you start taking that money back out, which buckets should you take first? Which tax strategies should you take? There's just so many things to be thinking about. And, it's not really what all to think about. It's what you didn't remember to think about, right? It's what you don't know is the part that really gets you. And, And that's where, somebody who truly specializes like we do in retirement can really help out a lot. So one of the tools we set up was a digital toolbox, and it's got some cool stuff in it. It's got a report on, will my money last as long as I do? Very timely to what we're talking about.
Right.
Am I paying too much money in tax in retirement? Social Security timing decision and more. And those are really quick, about 10-page reads. So they're really easy to understand. And also we have a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and you can set a time with talk with us. So all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or click the link below.
Yeah, that's simple. Also, remember our show is a podcast. It comes out every Tuesday morning, so you can look for it wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for Wealth Creator Radio or go on YouTube too. So a lot of topics there that Eric and I have talked about, over this past year. Really good things that you can learn from there as well. So we thank you so much for joining us today. You are listening to Wealth Creator Radio. So happy to have you along. For someone who is listening and they're kind of feeling that tightrope anxiety, how do you help someone figure out if they're taking on too much risk or too little, Eric?
Yeah, well, one of the simplest things, first of all, is just having a risk score. So we have a program that can look through all your assets, look through all the different funds, stocks, all that stuff, and it's going to give you a score from 1 to 99. The stock market's in the low 70s, the S&P 500. So, but sometimes I've got clients that I meet with and they're in the 80s or 90s, their risk score, which is really extreme, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, is that bad or good? It just is, right? If you love the roller coasters that spin you around and get you upside down several times, then okay, as long as you're okay with it, and as long as you know what that lifestyle is going to look like in retirement, because you're going to have a lot of times where, you might not have as much money as you can, or you might have huge losses. Most people usually want to lower down that score. And so that's where you can say, okay, well, if we add something that's, like a guaranteed account that's going to come in as risk score 1, then that allows you to not have to buy bonds that are risk score around 20 or 30, and you could buy more stocks because once it blends out, it lowers your overall score. So, that's a really kind of a key thing as you get older and older. You still want to make sure you lock in more of that money. You don't have those, 5 to 10 years to wait for it to come back, and you need the money, right? So yeah, that's definitely a good way to go.
Right. Very good. So let's say someone's listening, watching, and they're like, I have an advisor, but maybe I'm not getting the best advice that I need. Tell us the value of getting a second opinion. And you guys do that all the time.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So, it's not necessarily that your advisor may not be, doing the right job for you or doing the best job. It's just they may not be the right person anymore. Right. So, if they were the ones who are, specialize in working with people in their 20s to 40s, and you're in your 50s and 60s, and you ask them about, Social Security or Medicare timing decisions, and they don't really understand it, or, there's other things, you want to make sure that they know what's going on. They want to make sure they can show you how to pay your lowest lifetime tax, not your taxes just for 1 year, but how to lower it for the rest of your lifetime. So, if they're not asking for your tax return on an annual basis, that's a sign that they may not be the best advisor for you for retirement planning, because it's all about taxes and retirement. It's the number one thing that you pay money on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, so we have to lower that down a whole bunch. So, those are things to be paying attention to watch out for, because if you don't have those all set up and all dialed in, it's going to be not the kind of retirement you want. And, reach out and get a second opinion. Well, what we do is we walk you through that first call where we just, what we call the Worry Less Wealth visit, where we just talk and find out what you're worried and what you're concerned on. And then we'll actually build out your blueprint and tell you which way you're headed. And if it's working, that's great. If not, we'll tell you time to fix some stuff. So, again, if you want a little bit more information or a way to set a time, just go into that toolbox, text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or click the link below.
Do you know whether your retirement plan has any weak points? Discover ways on giving your financial future the proper tune-up. Simply go online to wealthcreatortoolbox.com to gain a better understanding in taxes, Social Security, and other ways to manage your portfolio. That's wealthcreatortoolbox.com.
Hi there, welcome back. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, and we have been talking about that terrifying retirement tightrope, trying to grow your money, but not risking everything. That's scary. But I want to talk about something really interesting. Eric, you mentioned, there are ways to boost your retirement income without piling on more market risk. So it kind of sounds too good to be true. So what are we talking about here? Tell us.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of different ways to make sure you have some money that lasts. Some is, a lot of people just love the stock market, right? But a lot of people just go, no. Every time there's some sort of conflict in the world, there's some sort of whatever, then you're freaking out and you're trying to be retired. You're trying to enjoy life, not have to be constantly worried. So, what are some options? Well, sometimes that works really well is we can, put some funds into some guaranteed buckets. Lots of times they're issued with insurance companies and such. And, there's different ways to do it. Some will pay you a lifetime income. So, you can get that income for as long as you're around and they'll never run out. And with Social Security having issues around 2034 where they don't know if they're going to be able to pay all their benefits, having some sort of other guaranteed source of money isn't a bad way to go. Sometimes we just do ones where you just put the money in and you just take it out over 10 years, but you can take out large withdrawals and it has, really good earnings. It should average, maybe 5 to 7% over that time frame. And, again, not have that risk. So again, if you've got a bucket of money that is sitting there that you can kind of drain, then you can think about your other buckets kind of being able to keep getting full with those market volatilities, with all that bouncing around. And so it's not going to be, as quite a wild ride because, wild rides are fun in the amusement park. They're not so fun in your portfolio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So true. So true. And, you mentioned we have taxes, eating away at one end. Then we have those fees, eating away at the other end. So talk about the income inside. What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Social Security is, one thing, but like I said, it's, last I saw, it's, they switched to a goofy way to say it. They say they'll only be able to pay $810 of every $1,000 benefit, which is a super long-winded, complicated way to say everybody might get a 19% pay cut.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more understandable, but they didn't want to make it
I know,
easy
right?
to understand. So how can you have some actual stable income of your own? Most of us don't have pensions anymore. But pensions were always great. I mean, if you meet anybody with a pension, government workers, teachers, stuff like that, they may have not made the big bucks while they're working, but they're usually pretty content and happy in retirement because they're not having to worry about all this stuff. And, again, that's where if you can set up your own basic pension type style thing where you have some other money and have that growing and having that pay out, well, then you're not as reliant on that, day-to-day craziness of the markets.
Right. Okay, so let's get into the fees. A lot of people, including me, don't really understand the fees. If you see 1.5% or 2%, you're like, yeah, that's not much, but that's not actually true, is it?
No, I mean, it can definitely add up. I mean, I think fees are, just anything is valuable if you're getting value out of it. Right. Netflix isn't too expensive, but if you never ever turned it on, why are you paying for it?
Right.
So a fee could be cheap and still be expensive if you have no value. Now, if a fee is doing good, then you're getting a lot of benefit, then that's one thing. So, sometimes people have old school mutual funds that are really expensive that they didn't realize that they've had them for a long time. And they're paying a lot of fees and that person hasn't talked to them. Or sometimes I'll see it where it says house account on it. So, meaning there is no advisor, but they're still paying these higher fees on these funds that, they may have bought that somewhere in the 2000s or something like that. So, that's the hard part is with those fees, it's, are you getting what you're paying for? And do you know what you're paying for? And so it's really important to know that. And, as you move up, in terms of asset levels, you should be having those fees drop down.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we have to, really be focused on.
Mm-hmm. So And if someone gets this right, then they are reducing how much they need to pull from their portfolio every year. And then that gives their investments a better chance of lasting, right? I guess, correct?
Yeah. I mean, you want to watch out, make sure you're pulling out, the right amount of money, but you also want to make sure you also have fun. I mean, I think too many people are so freaked out about spending their money that, they die with way too much and then they never had any of that fun.
Yeah.
And the reality is your 60s, you're going to do a lot more. Your 70s, you'll do less. And your 80s, probably not much at all. So if you're saving up a ton of money for your 80s, what are you saving for? Right?
Exactly.
You can't just sit around and look at it. And, so that's one of the things that I think a lot of people have to, really balance out. And so if you have a personalized income plan, you can actually have those numbers. You can see how that is year by year, see if you are on track or not. But you should also budget in having some more fun. Having, all of our clients have a fun fund.
I love
where
that.
We budget, some fun. And, maybe it's 10,000, maybe it's 15, 20, whatever the number is, whatever types of trips you like to do or things you like to do. And, maybe we only do that till age 80 or 85, but, at least we have that in the budget. So that way, you're going to have some fun. You're going to go do some stuff that you want to do.
Yeah.
And, I think that's one of the biggest keys that a lot of people don't do. And so, one of the things that we did do is we set up a digital toolbox for people to, get a lot of this data. And so, if you want to get a copy of that or access to it, I should say, we've got, will my money last as long as I will? That's a good one. What we're talking about. Am I paying too much tax in Social Security in retirement and Social Security timing decisions? A copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth, and a way to set a time with Heckman Financial here. So all you got to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184.
Yeah, the whole point of Eric doing our show is to help transform your retirement worries into confidence. And let me say, he and his team know how to do this because it's your goal, Eric, to help 1,001 people retire by 2031. That's coming up. And you're well on track to do that. You've helped a lot of people retire.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so that's one of the key things is not worrying. I mean, I always kind of equate it to, when you're driving down and you got that low gas gauge, you don't know what you're passing. You could not probably describe where you were, but all you could describe is how far away that exit is and where that gas station is, right? There's nothing else you can focus on when you're having to worry so much about to run out of gas. And, same thing with retirement. If you're, running on fumes and that's all you're focused on, then okay, that's not going to be much of a retirement. But if you've got a plan and where to fill up ahead of time, right? That you're going to have everything that you need to make that trip possible. And it's going to be a great trip, then you're not going to be worried about all this stuff. And so that's probably one of the biggest problems I think most people have in retirement is they're just worried about so much. And that's why our process is Worry Less Wealth.
Worry Less Wealth, exactly. Yep. And the name of our show, Wealth Creator Radio, we want to help you create wealth in retirement. So thank you for joining us today. For anybody listening, they want to make sure that they are on solid ground. They want to find out, am I in any danger, on this tightrope that I'm walking? What's the first step in working with you guys? And then also, I know you don't give advice to the same people. Everybody's retirement's different. So close out with that, please.
Yeah. Yep. No, definitely. So I mean, our process is to set up that first visit where we just kind of find out what you're worried about, find out what's going on. And then if it makes sense, we'll meet for a second one with no cost. And we'll actually build the blueprint you have right now, tell you where you're headed and tell you how things are looking and, basically go from there. And, if you want to have access to that, the easiest way to do is just text word visit to 800-454-1184. Again, text word visit 800-454-1184 or click the link below.
Be sure to like and subscribe to Wealth Creator Radio so you can stay up to date on ways to build your wealth and create a retirement you and your family will enjoy for years to come. Like and subscribe today and create your wealth for tomorrow with Wealth Creator Radio.
Good morning. So happy to have you along with us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. I want to mention, Eric holds many events throughout the year, and you can find out those details, even sign up for them on their website, wealthcreatorradio.com. So many topics that we discuss on our show. You can meet this friendly guy that you hear on the radio every single weekend. You can meet him in person and attend one of his events, okay? Wealthcreatorradio.com. Just head to that website. All right, so you're in store for big changes when you retire, right? It's just a new adventure. The thing is, we want to avoid common mistakes that people can make in their retirement years. So, Eric, we have this list of things not to do when you retire. It comes from lovetoknow.com. So it's a top 5. We're going to kind of go through this, and I'm sure you would love every one of your retirees to know this, right?
Yeah, no, certainly. So the first one, number 5, so it's kind of like the old school countdowns.
Yeah,
like
5.
Letterman back in the day.
Yeah.
Enjoy retirement, but don't be undisciplined. And so what this is really talking about is making sure you've got, some sort of structure, some sort of routine. Obviously, you had that when you're working, but it gets a little different when you're, just off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a vacation day. It's more just, okay, how do I make sure, you keep this going? And, so that'd be one of the things is making sure that you stay active, keep doing stuff physically, go out, take walks, ride bikes, whatever you want to do, hikes, something to keep yourself moving.
Right. So obviously, this isn't directly related to a financial plan, which is what we usually talk about. But, you do have to have a plan for how you're going to spend your time. That's just as important as having a plan for how you're going to spend your money, right? I love that.
No, certainly. I mean, if you love to golf and now you're going to be able to golf, 4 or 5 days a week versus 2, well, how much is that going to cost you?
Yeah.
Right. And, if you're doing a lot more trips now, obviously if you're just taking hikes around near you, it may not cost you much, right? There's some stuff that's less expensive. But if you want to try to do hikes in Patagonia or some other place, right, where it's going to take you longer, you do have to have a budget for that. So that is one of those things that you do want to make sure you have a plan for. The other one would be don't immediately downsize your house, because once you quit your job and you're trying to get that new routine, all those changes can be pretty tough to handle.
Yeah. So, you should kind of take time to think that through. My husband and I have already downsized. We've already done that. And, we're not even retired yet. So that was kind of nice. We just were like, we need to just get into we knew we needed to get our finances in order. So we're like, all right, we're going to sell this house, and move into something smaller, which is actually, it worked out well. It was the same square footage. So we have the space, not the basement, but we have basements where I live. But anyway, we had to get rid of a lot of stuff, but it really was kind of nice, and now we're in a smaller place and more affordable for, coming up in, retirement. But anyway, that's great. Don't immediately downsize your home. What are some other major decisions people need to seek guidance on before pulling that trigger?
Obviously, a lot of people do downsize their house, but you do want to do it a little bit more slowly because, like you said, you have to get rid of all the junk, all the de-junking and stuff. And I've had some people who try to do it all at once, and it is brutal because it's just, mentally exhausting of trying to speed up and get rid of all that stuff and sell your house and then find your new place. And all that stuff at once is really tough to do, especially if you've been there 30, 40
right.
years.
Oh, yeah. You really collect.
And then the other problem, too, is I find is how many of your friends are you going to lose and not talk to or not see, if depending on where you end up moving to, right? And sometimes people pick locations that sound great. And then, I was in Phoenix or a little bit ago, and they'd had over 100 days of 100 degrees, right? So, in 1 year. So, do you really want to be there? Right. And so that's one of the things you have to watch out for. Is that place going to be the place that you really want to be? And so I also recommend go rent a place for a while and see what those places are like and where you want to move to and those things. So that'd be one of the big ones. Obviously, the other thing is, especially when you have all these assets, especially if you sell your house and you may have now more assets because you did that. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure you take care of that estate planning and make sure that everything's done there. So you want to make sure all your assets are in the trust, that, you've got it updated. Sometimes your estate plan may have your guardian for your kids. Well, maybe they're in their 30s or 40s, right? So,
exactly.
if you still have a guardian, that means it's not been updated for quite some time.
Eric, that happened to us. My husband and I, our kids were in their 30s. And we're like, oh, we need to make a new will. Or their Aunt Patty's going to be taking care of them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the things that you have to really watch out for is just making sure those are, maybe at least every 10 years updated. But, especially as you change things and change accounts, you want to make sure that all stays correct and stays accurate.
Eric, this is what you do. You come alongside retirees and guide them, pre-retirees, to help them make those right decisions as they move into retirement, because you want them to have a worry-free retirement. That's your goal, worry less in retirement. So talk about, this toolbox that we are offering them that has, not only your book called Worryless Wealth, which you wrote about your own experiences, but everything else that's involved.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things is just having a plan. So if you're, 50, 55 and you're getting close to retirement, you want to be doing that plan. But even if you've already retired, you still got to get this plan going. It's kind of like showering. Just because you did it once doesn't mean you're done. And, you got to keep doing it. Right. And so, that's one of the things we want to look at is, where's your income going to come from? How long is it going to last? Where should your investments be structured now? And, where's that tax bills going to come from, and how we lower that, lifetime tax? What's the healthcare issues along the way? And then lastly, what we've been talking about right there is legacy, right? Who's going to get your stuff when you're gone, and is it all set up how it should be set up? So yeah, those are the big areas that you should be, looking at. So again, all you have to do to get this access to this toolbox is a copy of my book, Worryless Wealth, or Will Your Money Last as Long as You Do? And are you paying too much taxes in retirement? These are all great quick reads. All you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Yeah, Eric Heckman, founder of Heckman Financial right here in the Silicon Valley area. And he has been doing this for over 30 years and counting, helping retirees just like you. So we're so glad you joined us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio. Now we're talking about the top things to avoid when you retire. Number 5, enjoy retirement, but don't be undisciplined. In other words, have some sort of structure and routine so you can, keep healthy mentally and physically. And then number 4 is don't immediately downsize your home. Number 3, don't neglect your estate planning. All right, Eric, tell us number 2.
Yeah, number 2 is don't be afraid to try new things. And, I think that's really great advice. I've got a lot of clients that have done some kind of cool stuff. Some have gone back to, a lot of the community colleges. The classes are free. So they've taken courses, sometimes about history in other places, and then they go see those locations on trips. Some have picked up instruments. I've got a few that are actually in bands, folk bands and jazz and a couple different ones. So whatever you might want to try, just go for it, right? You got the time, go do it. And, you never know. And then sometimes that could also be true with volunteering. You could just volunteer at some place that's new that adds a little bit more meaning. And then the last one would be just don't let loneliness creep into your life. AARP says over 45% of people over 65 are single. They're either divorced, separated, widowed, whatever. But it's not like you go to work and go see somebody, right? So you got to have some way to reach out. And so I would definitely make sure you get involved, stay in contact with others, not just online, but in real human form. Right. So, but yeah, those are some of the tips and tricks that you should be doing in retirement. But again, if you want access to all our great digital downloads at our Wealth Creator Toolbox, just text word toolbox, 800-454-1184. Again, text word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Imagine for a moment that an intense storm is pounding your house. Will the roof leak? Will the siding peel away? Will your basement flood? If your house is properly built and maintained, you'll be fine. But what about your 401k or your investments? The stock market has had a great run the last few years, but is its current turmoil making you feel uneasy? Are you confident your portfolio is built to weather the financial storm? Now may be a great time to have your retirement plan inspected. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial at 800-454-1184 now. Eric will examine your portfolio and show you if your investments are in need of some weatherproofing. Call Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial today at 800-454-1184. That's 800-454-1184. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
All right, we have come to the time in our show, Eric. I love this part. You give us a story about some retirees that you have helped. Today, you're going to do a wealth success story. It's always a great lesson, to see how things worked out for the best with retirees. So tell us what you have for us today, please.
Yeah, well, I guess talk about Scott and Alex here. So they've been clients for quite some time, and they'd already, before we met, had done a pretty good job of saving up a bunch. And, over the years, we just kept doing different planning. We were taking advantage of that mega backdoor Roth, where you can fund extra money into your 401k after tax basis and convert it. And so that was helping them build up a ton of money now in tax-free, along with the taxable money that they'd been building up over all the years, funding 401ks and IRAs and such. And, they were getting closer to retiring. And, what happens in Silicon Valley quite often happened, and unfortunately, Scott there, and he got laid off, very common and definitely coming back around a lot more, it seems like now. And so I think kind of post-COVID, they're, a lot of these places overstaffed, and now they're starting to go, okay, who do we really need?
Yeah.
In his case, they got rid of his entire department. That was kind of brutal.
Yeah.
And he'd been there for quite some time. So, now the nice thing is that, they give you, most of these companies will give you some nice exit packages. So you did get, several months of pay and all that stuff, but still it was kind of planning on going for a few more years. And I see this a lot where people, they're supposedly not ageism. There's supposedly not issues like that. But, if you're being interviewed by somebody in a hoodie and sandals and you've got gray hair, they kind of know you're older, right? So,
yeah.
And they're, especially if they're like, wow, you're older than my dad or something like that, not good, they're not saying that out loud, of course, right?
Right.
But mentally they're probably saying stuff like that. And, and so that's one of the tougher things I find is a lot of people end up, getting retired before they planned on doing it. But the nice thing is when we're running the numbers for them that, they can be fine. They're kind of crazy also in the remodel of the kind of like their dream retirement home. So it wasn't necessarily the best time. But, in some kind of silver linings part, well, when you're remodeling something, there's all these decisions, all these things to make. Well, now you're going to have time to go do those, right?
Be there, yeah.
Yeah, you'll be able to go see them and watch them and stuff. So, so that's one of those things that I think people, in terms of the moral of the story, is really, if you're 60 plus in Silicon Valley, you need to be, ready in case your job changes, right? In a forcibly manner, right? Where you don't have the option. And, and I've seen it so many times, and it's very hard for people to get a job back into that same industry. Now, a lot of times you go off and do a fun job, right? Work at the mountain winery, have some concerts, right? I've got some people working at SAP, enjoying the concerts, the Sharks games, other things, so you could do a job for fun, something that you're interested in. There's lots of different options, but, again, you got to keep those options open, and really figure out what's the best thing for you. But definitely, if you have that planning ahead of time and you're on track and you're on track, if something bad happens, you're going to be okay. So again, if you want to get a little bit more information from us, you want to get a copy of my book, any of the quick downloads and reads we have, or even just set up a time to talk, text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download directly at wealthcreatorradio.com. You've been listening to Wealth Creator Radio. Next week, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to Wealth Creator Radio. I'm Eric Heckman, and it's been a pleasure guiding you towards a more confident and secure retirement. Remember, my responsibility is to always do what's right for you, our client. Together, we can cut out that fancy-sounding financial jargon that doesn't help and focus on what truly matters for your financial future. If you're ready to take control of your retirement planning and build a personalized income plan, contact us at 800-454-1184. 1184 and text the word Toolbox to schedule a complimentary consultation. If you're looking for more resources and tools to build your retirement future, don't forget to check out that Wealth Creator Toolbox, your toolkit for a secure and confident retirement journey. Until next time, retire more and worry less with Wealth Creator Radio.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.